Hello, everyone, and welcome into another edition of Inquire live at Game Day Central. Happy holidays! It is Christmas Eve here at AT&T Stadium, where in just a little bit the 13-1 Philadelphia Eagles will take on the Dallas Cowboys in a very anticipated NFC East matchup. I'm your Game Day Central co-host and beat reporter for the Philadelphia Inquirer, Josh Tolentino. And as always, I am joined by my man EJ Smith, fellow co-host of Game Day Central. EJ, happy holidays. How's it going?
Happy holidays to you too, Josh. I'm doing pretty well. It's a little colder here than I thought it was going to be, but I think that's just about everywhere in the country. You could say that. So no, it's good to be back. There are worse places to be on Christmas Eve than at an Eagles Cowboys game for sure.
Yeah, certainly. Yesterday, I think when we landed, it was frigid, especially for Texas, about 20 degrees. Today, obviously, we are indoors. It's a bit warmer outside and some football to be played here. A lot of implications on the line, a lot of storylines going in. Let's dive right in, EJ. But first, where is the best place that fans can continue the conversation with us?
Yeah, Josh, that's inquirer.com/Eagles Game Day. That's where we want to have a two-way conversation with you guys. Throughout the game, we'll be in there. We'll be, putting our analysis in there. We'll be letting you guys know what we're seeing from the press box. And we want that to be a two-way conversation, like I said earlier. We want you to be able to put what you're thinking, kind of bounce things off of us and let us know what you're seeing on the broadcast as well. And later on in the show, we'll do a segment called What You Said. It's my favorite segment, actually, where we take some of your comments and, we discuss them on the show. So you never know. You might put a comment in there and it might end up in the show next week when the Eagles are playing the Saints.
All right, EJ's got you covered there. Inquirer.com/Eagles Game Day. It's where you can find all our coverage and continue the conversation with us on Game Day Central. EJ, let's jump right into it. For our viewers who tune in regularly throughout the season, we've got a segment called Who's Hurt, Who's Healthy, where we dive into the injuries. We're not waiting, EJ. It is a big week here at the quarterback position for the Eagles. Jalen Hurts, a front runner candidate for the league MVP. He's been playing at such a high level here, and he has a shoulder injury, EJ, and he will not be playing today. It is Gardner Minshew time, Minshew mania. Honestly, I wrote about this early in the week, but it's a shame that at least during the regular season, EJ, these two teams, Cowboys and the Eagles, they won't have both of their starting quarterbacks matched up against each other. Back earlier in the season, Dallas Cowboys, Dak Prescott was hurt. This time, Jalen Hurts is out with a shoulder injury. How does this affect the offense, and what do you expect from Gardner Minshew?
Yeah, well, obviously the biggest impact is going to be in the run game and just the contributions that Jalen Hurts has with his legs. Not only is he a threat on scrambling plays and kind of dictates what a defense can play against the Eagles in the pass game, but he also is, as the Eagles so often remind us, +1 in the run game. He is the type of quarterback that the backside of a defense has to respect. The threat of him pulling and taking the ball the other way. With Gardner Minshew, now he's not a statue back there. He can move a little bit too, but Jalen's one of the most athletic quarterbacks in the NFL. I do think that the Eagles will have to change the way that they call the run game a little bit. Without Jalen, they're not going to get the benefit of the doubt from the backside they usually get. And it might require more power running, more between the tackles running, more conventional runs with Gardner Minshew, maybe more under center runs. We could see some more of that. In the pass game, Gardner gets the ball out quick. He's, accurate. He's good with anticipation throws. Not as adept with the deep ball as Jalen has been this year. Jalen has been really effective. Throws down the sideline, post routes, really being aggressive down the field. I don't think you really see that from Gardner. He doesn't have the arm strength that Jalen has, doesn't have the willingness to air it out. That said, a lot of the plays that the Eagles offense has kind of been, the cornerstones of the Eagles offense. The tight end screens to Dallas Goedert, the short RPOs, slant routes to AJ Brown. Those are all things that are somewhat quarterback agnostic. We talked a lot about Micah Parsons. The discussion is it hurts of the team. Those are plays that are pretty quarterback friendly, I would say. And those are things that I think Gardner Minshew can excel at. So I do think that the offense will look a good bit different without Jalen in the lineup. But Gardner brings his own set of strengths, and a lot of them align with what we've seen the Eagles offense do so far this year.
Jalen Hurts, an obvious key cog to this high-octane offense, but you look at the weapons surrounding Gardner Minshew. EJ, I want to rewind us back to last year when Gardner Minshew had a fill-in spot start for Jalen Hurts, who was dealing with an ankle injury at the time. I believe it was against the Jets, if my memory serves. I think he completed. It was like an insane number of consecutive pass attempts. I think it was like 10 plus attempts. We were all in the press box going like, "Wow!" I mean, and you look at who he was throwing to back then. Dallas Goedert ate up a lot of those throws and completions. But now, look at the weapons that he has. Obviously, Miles Sanders is having such a great year. Expect a heavy dosage of him today here in Dallas. But he's got AJ Brown. He's got Dallas Goedert back, who's returning from IR. Devontae Smith is closing in on 1,000 yards rushing. And not just that, he's got 5 Pro Bowl offensive linemen there to give him some time. EJ, let's transition right there to the Pro Bowl. Every single offensive lineman was either named a Pro Bowl starter or an alternate, and all together, they've got 8 Pro Bowl starters and I believe 9 alternates. EJ, can you take us through the starters? It's been such a terrific season for the Eagles, and they were awarded appropriately.
Yeah, so there's 8 of them. So forgive me if I need a second here to go through them. I'm going to try and do it without reading the script or anything like that. So it's Jalen Hurts, Miles Sanders, AJ Brown, Landon Dickerson, Jason Kelsey, Lane Johnson, Hassan Reddick, and Darius Slay. I just got them. There we go. So you can see I'm on the top of my game. It's a holiday, but no days off for me right there. They also had 9 alternates, but yeah, those are the 8 Pro Bowl starters. Those are the 8 Pro Bowlers that got named, and then 6 of those guys are starters. Yeah.
And EJ was on the coverage of Pro Bowl announcement night, and one thing that really kind of stuck out with his what he tweeted out, I believe it was Wednesday night, is that it's hard to quibble, in regards to snubs, and this guy should have made it. There are definitely some obvious ones. Javon Hargrave, who leads all NFC defensive tackles with 10 sacks, that's a career high, and not just that, he was the leading fan fan vote getter, excuse me, and he did not make it as a starter. So there are certainly some guys like that, James Bradbury, but league high 8 selections. The overall sentiment, though, EJ, as we were in the locker room just a few days ago back in Philadelphia, is that these guys don't want to play in the Pro Bowl. They have higher aspirations. The Pro Bowl is in Las Vegas that week before the Super Bowl. They want to be still playing football at that time. Many of the players referenced, forget Vegas. We want to go to Arizona. So we will see exactly how that plays out here over this next month. But 8 league high 8 selections here for the Eagles to the Pro Bowl. EJ, 13-1. Here we are, 3 games left. The Eagles just have to win one more game. If they win today, they get not only the division title of the NFC East, but also locking in that number 1 seed. At some point, it seems like that's going to happen here over these next 3 weeks. I'll save your prediction for later, but just kind of laying that out there is that the Eagles need one more victory to secure those 2 things.
Yeah, and even losses from, the following 3 seeds, Minnesota, the 49ers, and I think it's Dallas. But yeah, basically losses from those 3 teams as well could clinch it for them as well. So they've got a really high percentage chance of doing it at this point. They can make it really easy by winning one of the next 3. I think that how Jalen Hurts' status kind of plays into the next 3 weeks will be interesting. If they drop this one, do they try and get him back for the Saints game, or do they try and get him back for the Giants game? I can see him just wanting to have him play in the Giants game just so he's not taking a month off before playing in the biggest game of the season, whether it's a divisional playoff round or whatever it may be. So I could see them. I'm curious to see how they'll handle that. But yeah, they're definitely in a good position. It's funny, like looking back, the Cowboys lost to the Jaguars last week, combined with the Eagles win over the Bears. It's even more pivotal than we realized because of Jalen Hurts' injury, because it kind of took a little bit of the stakes away from this game. Kind of put the Eagles in the driver's seat where they don't need this game. The Cowboys could definitely use it, but both of these teams are kind of locked into where they're at right now. And, again, it's going to take one win for the Eagles to clinch the whole conference. And Dallas is really kind of locked into that 5 seed right now.
Yeah, and make no mistake about it, as the Eagles eye in on this top seed, guys want that bye week there for the beginning of the playoffs. I was talking to Darius Slay a couple days ago, and, the clean version is like, of basically what he told me is like, heck yeah, we want that week off. We want that 1 seed. We're going to try to get it this weekend. Dallas Goedert even added, we want to wear some new gear on the way home, referencing the NFC East title. We'll see if they're able to wrap that up here today and how they'll handle these next 2 games. One more thing to mention, EJ, they do possess that Saints pick. So going into next week, how they want to deploy their starters, how they want to game plan for that game. the worse the Saints' record is, the better their pick will be come the draft time. So a lot to unravel here over these last 3 weeks of the regular season. EJ, let's jump in to who's hurt and who's healthy. Jalen Hurts leads the list, but we kind of mentioned it earlier. Dallas Goedert is back after a 5-week absence. I expect him to be a big part of the offense and help Gardner Minshew's day here in Dallas.
Yeah, it sounded like he was close last week, for the Bears game, but maybe a little bit of the circumstances about, the stakes of that game and, maybe keep making sure that he's fully right by the time that they get to the playoffs, maybe held him back a little bit. But yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it was hard when he went out. I really thought the Eagles' offense would struggle to kind of make up for what he brings to the table. I think that he's coming back at the perfect time though, because the Eagles did find some answers. I talked so much on the show about breaking tendencies and being unpredictable, and Dallas Goedert does a lot for the Eagles' offense in those regards. Being able to run out of light personnel packages or throw out of heavy personnel packages, just because of how versatile he is. Without him, they ran a lot of those empty sets with Jalen Hurts in the backfield. They're still threat to run out of that because of Jalen Hurts. Now you don't have Gardner. Now you have Gardner Minshew back there. I do think that heavy sets with Dallas Goedert, you can still throw out of them, but it's going to help them kind of regain those numbers in the run game that they lose with Jalen Hurts out of the lineup. So yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think he's going to be a huge part of what they do today. I think that whether it's obviously he's got the Gardner Minshew connection, so the passing contributions are an easy thing to predict. But even in the run game, I think that having him back is going to be a big big factor as they try and figure out how to make the run game work without Jalen Hurts kind of just drawing attention in it.
Yeah, and it's a bit wild to think about, but Dallas Goedert, he's missed 5 games, the past 5 games. He's still the team's 3rd leading receiver behind A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and the Eagles. They have an NFL best 53 touchdowns right now. They are 1 short of hitting that 54 mark, which is the franchise record. If they get 2 touchdowns today, they're going to top and set a new mark here. Maybe Gardner Minshew is able to get one there to Dallas Goedert in the end zone. EJ, elsewhere for injuries, Reed Blankenship, after missing a game with a knee injury that he sustained up at MetLife Stadium, he's back in the fold. Kind of talked to guys across the secondary, Darius Slay, Avonte Maddox. They said that he's looked good back there, the running mate with Marcus Epps, while C.J. Gardner-Johnson is out for at least 1 more week. Definitely an encouraging sign for the Eagles that undrafted rookie safety Reed Blankenship is back in the fold. He's been playing such sure tackling when he's been in there. A bit of a pleasant surprise there for the Eagles. Again, the undrafted rookie from Middle Tennessee.
Yeah, no, I mean, when he got hurt, it definitely seemed like it could have been a worse injury than a couple weeks here. So, and as thin as they are at safety with C.J. Gardner-Johnson already out, and particularly against this team, a team that likes to run the ball, a team that likes bring the physicality. I think Reed will be a big addition. He played really well. Like you have pretty low expectations for an undrafted rookie. Being in relief duty on the back end of a defense that's, they're not super complex, but they do ask a lot of their secondary. And, he's lived up to the challenge and then some. I mean, he's played really, really well, especially against the run. So, I think it's a big addition. Just they had Avonte Maddox playing back there last week. They've definitely been feeling injuries in the secondary most of the season. But when Reed's been out there and has been a fixture of that group, I mean, they've been really good.
And one more injury note to that, EJ. Tyree Jackson, he is, unfortunately for him, after making that long rehab and returning from that torn ACL injury that he had at the end of last season, he's on IR. And the ensuing move on that linebacker, Christian Ellis, who was on the practice squad, he was out of elevation. So really the only way that he could play again is putting him on the active roster. They did that. They signed him to the 53-man roster yesterday. I'm expecting him to be up, and he's been a good presence here for the special teams that's been playing much better as of late over these past few weeks.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's been a big part of, it feels like that Titans game, which was his first game up, it was like they just turned the corner on special teams. Like before that, I feel like we were talking a lot about the special teams definitely going to cost him a game at some point this year. And obviously it's not all Christian Ellis. They made a couple of changes before that Titans game, but no, he's been, he's brought that physicality and that energy that I think that group kind of needed. So yeah, I mean, it makes sense to bring him up.
All right, EJ, you mentioned it earlier. Let's jump over to what you said. A reminder to all of our viewers back home, make sure you go over to Inquirer.com/Eagles Game Day. That's the place where you'll be able to submit your comments and questions, and we'll have a chance to read them throughout the show. Next week, we are back home in Philadelphia, as Marcus Hayes says, what's up? Again, what you said, you want to comment on Marcus's column, go over there to our Game Day Central homepage. Our first comment comes from Debs Glass Designs, who says, to win, the Eagles need to run the ball well and avoid long passes that will be picked off. This game is a toss-up. EJ, running the ball, the Eagles have been doing it really well. Last week was a bit of an anomaly. They did not run the ball. They they relied more on Jalen Hurts throwing the ball and, keeping the ball in his hands. They kind of neglected Miles Sanders. I don't think he touched the ball until about that halfway point of the second quarter. Expecting a much different pace here in Dallas with Jalen Hurts injured. Worth noting, again, the Eagles lead the NFL with 30 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean, so the Cowboys secondary is really banged up. Like Trayvon Diggs is still in the lineup, but Jordan Lewis and the number 2 cornerback there are also injured. So they've had some injuries mount up at cornerback, and I do think that the Eagles will probably favor those matchups. I do think if you watch the Jaguars game from last week, they found Kelvin Joseph and they were like, okay, this guy's having a bad day. We're going to keep targeting him. So I definitely could see the Eagles testing that guy early, but I think the run game is going to be a big part of what they do today. I don't think deep passing is necessarily going to be Gardner Minshew's strength against this team or just in general. So I do think that, the run game is going to be important. The Cowboys are like a lighter team. They don't have like these big, heavy fronts like the Eagles like to put out there, those 5 down fronts, like, 300 plus pound defensive linemen filling up the line. I mean, they're definitely a little bit more like a light downhill athletic team. So I think it's going to be an interesting matchup with the Eagles' offensive line. Obviously they've got some bigger guys, but they also have good athletes. So I think that's probably going to be, the Cowboys' game plan is going to be to, fly to the ball, use their athleticism to beat blocks and stuff like that. And I think that the Eagles' offensive line is going to have to win their one-on-one matchups and kind of just create space for Miles Sanders. Again, it's the first time all season that we're going to see this group not having the advantage of Jalen Hurts kind of, evening out the numbers in the run game. So I do think it's going to be an interesting matchup to watch for sure.
Yeah, on Wednesday afternoon, EJ, Marcus actually posed a question to Nick Sirianni, essentially asking why the Eagles didn't run the ball more. And Sirianni essentially said, my bad, that, Miles Sanders is having the best year of his career. Again, a Pro Bowler. An interesting tidbit, EJ, the 3 the 3 Pro Bowl running backs for the NFC, they all come from the division, all NFC East running backs. Saquon Barkley, Miles Sanders' former teammate at Penn State, and Tony Pollard, the running back here for the Cowboys. 3 NFC East guys representing the conference in the Pro Bowl. Miles Sanders expecting a big workload here today with Jalen Hurts out. EJ, our next comment comes from Athens, who says, I have a bad feeling about this game. May not be so close and not in the Eagles' favor. Philly doesn't need this game. Dallas does. EJ, you mentioned that earlier in regards to, the Cowboys are coming in off an ugly loss to Doug Peterson and the Jaguars. The Eagles really only needing one loss from the combination of those 3 teams and a victory over these final 3 games. I don't think, necessarily just because Jalen Hurts is out that the Eagles are going to, lay down and let the Cowboys run over them. You look across the board. We mentioned the running game. We mentioned the weapons there, the 3 top guys, Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert. We barely scratched the surface on the defense. They lead this league in sacks, 55 sacks, I believe. They've got almost 3 guys there at double digits. Josh Sweat just needs half a sack, and he'll join Javon Hargrave and Hassan Reddick, who's been playing very, very well over these past 2 months. I don't expect, just because Dallas needs this game more, that the Eagles are going to necessarily have a lack of effort.
Yeah, I honestly think that that Jalen Hurts being out for this game actually kind of like benefits the Eagles in a way. I mean, obviously he's a great player, and their long-term success hinges on whether or not he'll be healthy. But I do think that in a way, if Jalen Hurts were under center this game, I could have seen the Eagles kind of being like, we're going to call the most vanilla offensive game plan we can. We could see this team in the playoffs. I think that it's pretty likely that if Dallas is in the 5 seed, depending on who's in the 6 and 7 seeds, that you might end up. There's a high likelihood you'll see that Dallas team, they're going to play like Tampa Bay or whoever wins the NFC South. They'll probably be favored in that game, probably be an upset there. So they could definitely see this team in a couple of weeks. And I do think that the opportunity to have the Cowboys chew on like 60 minutes of Gardner Minshew film instead of having, Jalen Hurts with emptying out the cupboard, I think that, the Eagles can kind of play a little bit more free, Nick Sirianni and Shane Steichen can kind of call a little bit more of a free game just because they don't have to worry about, showing too much of what the offense with Jalen will look like if they do see this team again in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, certainly interested in how they will game plan for Micah Parsons. We saw a lot of really putting him on an island there on the right side, or making him choose rather in that option game. The Eagles, they definitely have the talent. You and I talked about this on the way here when we were driving to the stadium. They have the talent there at the tackles with Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson to contain and limit him. I believe over the past 2 years, Micah Parsons, he's got 24 sacks, and against the Eagles back in earlier in the season, 0. And that was a game in which Lane Johnson missed the second half. So the Eagles game plan well for him. We'll see exactly what they do today against the former Penn State star, Micah Parsons. EJ, our last comment comes from Kel, who says, the question is, if the Birds win on Saturday, can they beat the Cowboys 3 times this year if they meet in the playoffs? EJ, you alluded to it just now that they could, possibly see the Cowboys again in a couple of weeks. Really a historical saying all throughout the NFL is it's hard to win 3 times against the same team. I don't know. The Eagles are having such a special year. They've only got that one loss to the Commanders. If they win here tonight, I don't think, that's necessarily a phrase that's going to be referenced, although it is worth talking about. Can they beat a team 3 times in a year?
Yeah, so there's some historical data that suggests that it's not as hard as people say it is to beat a team 3 times in 1 year. But I do think that the point stands. I think that it really comes down, if you've seen a team 2 times already, it kind of comes down to your coaching, game plan, kind of countering off what you did in the first 2 games. I do think that there is an added challenge to that. And I think, again, that's why I referenced, if Jalen Hurts were playing this game, I do think the Eagles would have been pretty vanilla. I mean, I don't see what the point of, showing everything that you could be, showing all the advantages that you think you have and pinpointing all the matchups that you really like. Why would you do that in a game that you don't need if you can see the team a couple weeks later, and then they can, kind of figure out how to counter off of those things that you like to get to. So obviously, I think that there's a little bit of playing coy that will be, even still with Gardner, I think you'll still see some playing coy with the coaching staff. But yeah, I do think that there are some challenges, and I think that, I think the coaching staff has that stuff in mind for this game.
All right, EJ, let's transition over to predictions. But first, let's get some thoughts here from Inquirer beat reporter Jeff McLean.
Hi, I'm Jeff McLean of the Philadelphia Inquirer. Thanks for joining me here at GameDay Central to talk about this Eagles-Cowboys matchup. One that probably lost a little bit of its luster when the Cowboys lost to the Jaguars last week, but still there's a lot on the line, and the Eagles can clinch the number 1 seed in the playoffs and that ever important first round bye with a victory here in Dallas. Now, of course, number 1 story heading into this game is that the Eagles will be without Jalen Hurts, and arguably the MVP of the NFL. Just earned his first Pro Bowl bid. And the Eagles, a lot of their success on the offensive side of the ball has had to do with Hurts. So there's going to be some adjustment here in terms of what they're going to do at quarterback with Gardner Minshew. That being said, I mean, we've seen Minshew come in last year in this offense and deliver with a victory over the New York Jets. There is room within this scheme to kind of cater to his skill set. And I think the coaches are going to be pretty excited about having to kind of dabble and touch into that realm. And with Minshew, he's a very accurate guy. He does a good job of getting the ball out quick. And I think we'll see that against this Cowboys pass rush, which was among the best in the NFL. Obviously, they got Micah Parsons. They have DeMarcus Lawrence. They have a bunch of guys who can get after Minshew. But the Eagles have a very good offensive line, as we know. 3 guys who just got voted into the Pro Bowl. 2 of them, the other 2 guys, are Pro Bowl alternates. So, we saw in that first game that they were able to offset what Micah Parsons can do as a pass rusher by not blocking him and allowing Jalen Hurts to read him. That probably won't be the case here because Gardner Minshew isn't a +1 in the run game. But I think there are things you can do to kind of, slow Mark Parsons down and have, Minshew not have to hold the ball too long. And I think, one, they're probably going to get the ball to Miles Sanders a fair amount. He had 24 carries. That was the most he had last year with Minshew, a quarterback against the Jets. Last week, we know they kind of got away from Miles early in that game, and that was something I think the coaches afterwards realized that they shouldn't have done. They relied a little too much with Hurts in the run game, and I think you'll see them try and get the run game started early. Not a lot. I don't think there's any reason why they shouldn't throw the ball because they do have A.J. Brown. They do have Devontae Smith. They do now have Dallas Goedert back after a 5-game absence. Last year, he had a great game with Minshew at quarterback. So there are opportunities for them to throw the ball down the field. The cornerback crew for Dallas is down 2 of their starters. They still have Trayvon Diggs, who's one of the best in the league, but I think there are opportunities for them also to throw the ball. So I don't think the offense is going to really miss a huge amount. They'll miss certainly some because Hurts has been phenomenal. But Minshew, they'll be able to do some new things that Dallas isn't ready to really prepared for because they haven't seen much of him on film. On the other side of the ball, Dallas has an upgrade at quarterback compared to the first time because you're going from Cooper Rush to Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott is obviously a better quarterback. Prescott has not been his usual self. He's thrown a lot of interceptions. His interception rate is last in the NFL. And part of that has to do with the fact that he just doesn't have the receiving core he used to have with Amari Cooper gone. And you still have CeeDee Lamb, but there's a huge drop-off between Lamb and the rest of that receiving crew. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Jonathan Gannon use a scheme or a game plan similar to what he used in week 2 against the Vikings when they were able to keep Justin Jefferson in check. But, this pass rush has been great recently. They've been able to stop the run. That's going to be key here because you still have really good running backs in Tony Pollard. Ezekiel Elliott can still, power in between the tackles. And if the Eagles are able to contain that run game, then that just forces so much more on Prescott. And that's why he's had issues throwing the ball, because when in those obvious passing downs, that's when he's been forcing some of these throws in the tight windows. And I think even though the Cowboys have a lot more in the line here and the Eagles don't, they pretty much are assured that number 1 seed, even if they lose on Saturday. I still feel like this team wants to come and improve something that they have a lot of depth, that they can play at a high level without Hurts. Everybody believes that Hurts is the MVP in that locker room, but there's still a lot of pride in the rest of that group and how they can perform. And I think they're going to come out and beat the Cowboys. I think it's going to be close. I think it could come down to a late field goal. I have them winning 27-24 in Dallas on Christmas Eve, and that'll give the Eagles the number 1 seed going forward. And then when Hurts comes back, or whenever he comes back, then they can tackle that obstacle when they face it. So that's it here from me from Game Day Central. Back to you guys.
Thank you to Jeff McLean for his thoughts on today's game between the Eagles and Cowboys. EJ, I want to get yours. As you know it, we always ask for your player to watch out for. Give me one on offense and defense before we get to the scores.
So offensively, I would go with Devontae Smith. I feel like whoever is the number 2 receiver in the formation. Obviously, like Trayvon Diggs is a pretty good cornerback. AJ Brown kind of talked about the matchup with him. Trayvon jumps a lot of routes. Double moves he's kind of susceptible to him. He's an aggressive player. I think that he does have a lot of value just because of the turnovers he drives. But the rest of that Cowboys secondary has been struggling, and I think that if AJ Brown draws Trayvon Diggs, I think Devontae Smith could have a big game either in the slot or on the outside opposite AJ Brown. So I think the Eagles are going to push on those matchups again. I mean, they just watched Kelvin Joseph struggle, so I don't know why they wouldn't push on those matchups and see what they can get out of them. And then on defense, I would go with Hassan Reddick again. I feel like that guy is just having a really good run here. Dallas has good tackles. They rotate Jason Peters and Tyron Smith on the right tackle side, which is kind of funny because the two best left tackles of the generation right there, playing out of position. But they've been good on the exterior, but I just think this Eagles front has been really good. Maybe I'll cheat and go Javon Hargrave as well because I do think the Cowboys front is a little bit weaker on the inside. So those would be my players to watch.
EJ's got that Temple connection. It seems like he's picked Hassan here over the past month, but not a bad pick. I mean, he's playing at such a high level, doing exactly what the Eagles paid him to do when they got him out in the offseason. He's getting those sacks. So EJ goes Devontae Smith and Hassan Reddick. Give me Miles Sanders. Last week, again, he was kind of a forgotten piece in the offense and a game that you expected them to run the ball. Here, he can supplement and help aid Gardner Minshew in the passing game by getting it done on the ground. He's feeling good. He's having the best year of his career, coming off his first Pro Bowl selection. I'm going Miles Sanders. Defensively, I'll go Javon Hargrave. He kind of felt what's the word, EJ? The snub is
Slighted?
the obvious
Yeah.
one. Yeah, yes. Whatever you want to use.
Yeah.
He was disappointed that he was not a Pro Bowl, and understandably so. I mean, he leads the league again in all interior defensive linemen in sacks with his career high in 10, in addition to being collecting the most votes from the fans. He wants the system to change, and who knows? Over these last 3 weeks, maybe he goes on a sack craze here. EJ, give me your score prediction here on Christmas Eve. Are you taking the Eagles or Cowboys? What was your prediction in today's edition of the Philadelphia Inquirer?
Yeah, I mean, I think this will be a close game. I could see it going either way. I had the Eagles 27-24. I do. I think that the addition of Gardner Minshew, it's like adds that little bit of chaotic factor, a little bit of unpredictability. And I do. I think that the coaching staff can be a little bit more loose with what they're going to call, because it's not going to be the same picture that that the Eagles and Cowboys would theoretically see if they matched up in the playoffs. So I didn't see Jeff's score prediction when I wrote mine. Obviously, we have the same one. But yeah, I had the Eagles winning 27-24.
In today's paper, I was devil's advocate, EJ. I took the Cowboys here on Christmas Eve. They've definitely got that itch to, want to keep things close here in the division. I think they've, got some bitter feelings from the last time these two teams played. Micah Parsons has obviously had some comments here over the past few weeks, and ultimately missing Jalen Hurts, just such a huge piece here for the offense and league MVP. I think I took the Cowboys by 3 points. EJ, any final thoughts here before we wrap up? Before the Dallas Cowboys and Eagles kick off here?
No final thoughts. I'm excited for some Jerry World lunch and then dinner. I'm excited for Christmas Eve, and happy holidays to all you guys at home.
And there you go. We are going to wrap it up here on Game Day Central. Thank you so much for tuning in to Inquirer Live at Game Day Central. Make sure you stick around at inquirer.com/Eagles Game Day. That is the place where you can continue the conversation with myself and EJ. We've also got Jeff Nyberg here on site, along with our columnist Marcus Hayes. We've got you covered. All of our coverage you can find there at inquirer.com/Eagles Game Day. Who knows? Next week, we'll be back in Philadelphia here to close out the final 2 weeks of the regular season with the New Orleans Saints coming to town. We'll have a chance to read your comments and questions on the segment called What You Said. For EJ Smith, I am Josh Tolentino. Thank you so much for tuning in to Inquirer Live at Game Day Central. Enjoy the game and happy holidays.
Happy holidays, guys.